I got the goods. Mike Cernovich doing a little journalisming. Got the goods. I got Jim Jordan's confidential memo on the antitrust hearing to be held tomorrow. I got the tea. Who wants some tea? Will's here. Will, this is atrocious. So who wants some tea to be spilled? I will be spilling some tea. Now, this is a confidential memo that I've tamed because that's just the kind of shit that when I feel like doing, I'm doing. So on Monday, July 27th, the Subcommittee on Antitrust, Commercial, and Administrative Law will convene a hearing entitled Online Platforms and Market Power. Hearing themes. Second bullet point. Antitrust law should be used to promote freedom, competition, the American dream, not to punish success or attack companies solely because they are large. Now, that's a cute little line that begins with antitrust law should be used to promote freedom, competition. But this memo is a fucking law. This is a fucking betrayal. A fucking betrayal of a magnitude that my cynical ass, Jim Jordan just fucking spit in all your faces. He just betrayed everything that he claims to support in this memo. So point two, hearing themes. Antitrust law should be used to promote freedom, competition, the American dream. Well, yeah, I agree. Not to punish success or attack companies solely because they're large. So that latter point is DC speak for. This is going to be an apologia for monopolies. So I'll read you from the table of contents, page 10 or 12, page 12. Antitrust won't solve political bias. So let's hear what Jimbo says about Amazon, your conservative hero. Your hero, he's going to raise hell and hold these tech companies accountable. Let's see what your bro. Who do you want to do first? Amazon, Apple. So here's the page. Political bias in big tech should be decried, but antitrust won't solve it. Right. So I'm reading the talking points. This is the memo that is handed out to all the other Republicans, the GOP guys, to tell them what to say. Here's the talking point. Political bias in big tech should be decried, but antitrust won't solve it. What do you think about that, Will Chamberlain? What do you think about that, Will? You know, you've been around. You're a lawyer. What direction do you think this memo is heading? When one of their lead points is political bias in big tech should be decried, but antitrust won't solve it. So what you're going to get tomorrow is old Jimbo, he's going to raise hell. Conservatives, yeah, TikTok, we're being discriminated against, and all the videos are going to go viral, and exactly nothing will change. The biggest bait and switch con art move in a long time. So they're going to focus on political bias, not because they care, but because that's the whole Trojan horse, to get all you people in these culture war issues solved. So I'm reading from the memo. Antitrust won't solve political bias. This thing, by the way, is full of, it's just copy and pasted from this Chamber of Commerce thing floating around. Antitrust won't solve political bias. While exploring political bias in big tech, it is important to recognize that antitrust serves as a poor tool for advancing socio-political goals, separate from market efficiencies and competitive processes. So you can see the direction that is headed to. So while exploring political bias in big tech, it is important to recognize that antitrust serves as a poor tool for advancing socio-political goals, separate from market efficiencies and competitive processes. Well, the reason we have bias is because there's no competition, right? It's like, duh. Nobody would care about, like, nobody ever complains, oh, Gab banned me, right? Nobody cares. If there were 100 little outlets, then nobody would care. Twitter, text-based communication, the only game in town, right? Just the reality. So you can whine and cry all you want about big tech, but if you don't use antitrust enforcement, there's no way to break things up. Okay. So accordingly, it seems wise to avoid repurposing antitrust law in an attempt to advance and preserve freedom of speech in social media. So you're not getting antitrust from Congress Republican. This is just a fact. This is the memo. I'm reading it right now. I got it. Who else posted it? Right? So it seems wise to avoid repurposing antitrust in an attempt to advance and preserve freedom of speech in social media. So guess what? You're not going to get any antitrust action from Jim Jordan. Using antitrust to break up large technology companies or create sector-specific regulations instead seems likely to backfire. So not only will you not get antitrust law, but using antitrust to break up large technology companies or create regulations instead seems to backfire. These regulations will reduce incentive for entrepreneurs to develop alternative platforms. Do you got that? Let that sink in. Using antitrust law to break up large technology companies is going to backfire. The regulations will reduce incentive for entrepreneurs to develop alternative platforms. So, one, this is fucking bullshit. The reason you're not going to create the next Google is because they have a monopoly, right? That's why antitrust monopolies are anti-free market. Regulations aren't why entrepreneurs aren't trying to compete with Google, right? People aren't like, oh, there are too many laws, can't compete with Google. They're like, you can't compete with Google. They have a monopoly, right? It's just really that simple. But if the GOP does any antitrust regulation, the regulations may reduce incentives for entrepreneurs to develop alternative platforms. Instead, new regulations may fortify large social media companies. Do you got that? Do you got that? So if you use antitrust law to break up companies, that'll backfire. It'll lower incentives for competition, and it'll actually help big tech. This thing is really, even as cynical as I am, Jim Jordan. That Jim Jordan is the last person I could have imagined to just stick the knife in your back like this. Jim Jordan. This is Jim Jordan's memo, though. So then the memo goes through and it does each tech company step by step and defends them. There's talking points defending them, right? There's a that just here's why you shouldn't regulate Google. Here's why you shouldn't do Apple. Here's why you shouldn't do Amazon. So do you believe this? Despite a string of successes, Google has said it continues to face a number of competitors. Does Google have a competitor? Again, this is Jim Jordan's memo. I'm just quoting it. According to Jim Jordan's memo, which I'm quoting, Google has said it continues to face a number of competitors, including in search. Is that true? Google faces a number of competitors? Is that true? That's true? Is that true? Because that's what the Jim Jordan memo says. Google faces a number of competitors. Hey, what you going to do? Google said they face a number of competitors. Hey, end of the story. Likewise, Google considers itself to face numerous competitors in the advertising space. So Google, they said they face a lot of competitors. They said they're going to face more competitors in the future. So that's just it. I mean, Google told me that. I'm Jim Jordan. Google told me that they face a lot of competitors. They're going to face more competitors in the future. And that's it. Third, so reading again from the memo, there's not consensus that Google is acting wrongfully under existing law in relation to search, advertising, technology, or conduct. So is this a fucking memo from the Republicans, or is this a fucking lobbying form from Google? There's not consensus that Google is acting wrongfully. How the fucking, who told you that? Fuck you. Who according to whom? So there's consensus that Google's not acting wrongfully. Are you fucking kidding me? They've been paying fines in the EU. Are you fucking serious? But hey, Google, there's no consensus that Google's acting wrongfully. This is a talking point that we're going to get from Republicans tomorrow. Protect these monopolies, right? Protect these monopolies. So Google, I'll read these to you. While Google's conduct presents interesting questions, it seems far from open and closed that Google has engaged in anti-competitive or illegal conduct. Which, by the way, is how they're, like, again, that's like a lobbyist talking point. It seems far from open and closed that Google is engaged in anti-competitive. I mean, it's not. There's a lot of evidence about that, but isn't the point of a hearing to find out if they did, not to write a talking points memo for Google, right? Now we have Amazon. So Google, good. Are we done with Google? Any questions about Google? Just ask me what's in this memo. Ask me what's in this memo. I can't post it all just because sometimes these things are watermarked, and I, obviously this is nobody else has this memo. I mean, who else is reported on this memo? Betsy Woodruff obtained it, she claimed, on Politico and wrote a story. So I think Betsy Woodruff of Politico has it, and I have it. So I don't think anyone else has it. So I'm not going to, I would otherwise post it, but got to protect your sources. So any more questions about Google or how much Jim Jordan? By the way, I need to put some butane in here. Don't go anywhere. So we got Google. Google. Yeah, somebody goes sources. LOL, just kidding. If you ever joke about me not being sourced, that's not a joke that's allowed. You just get blocked. Like, oh, I'm just joking. You're blocked. Okay. So, like, we're not cool like that. And don't say things like that. Oh, it's not funny, actually. So, Google, they're safe. Now, so Google, they're safe. And now we'll do Amazon. Amazon faces a number of competitors. I mean, kind of. That's changing. They're shutting down local competitors, right? So if you're, I guess they're facing competitors maybe from other kind of monopolies, and you have an oligopoly. So that's antitrust isn't just about monopoly, it's also about oligopolies, which is an oligopoly is when you have collusion or just a number of big companies that squeeze everyone out. So that's another sort of issue. And did I say Twitter wasn't there? Right? How about you just pay attention? Learn how to pay attention. I don't know. Maybe you didn't go to school or something. Maybe you just don't know how to pay attention. Think. Be alone with your thoughts. Process the information you're getting. So next up is Amazon. So Amazon, this is again another, like Google, apology. Amazon faces numerous competition. And then what they do is they define Amazon as having a small share of the overall retail market, but not e-commerce market. So no one is saying that brick and mortar Amazon is a monopoly. That's again a lie. That's how this is lobbyist. I'm sure telling me not to be an ass won't get you blocked. So what they're doing now with Amazon is they're saying, well, Amazon, they don't control all of retail. Yeah, nobody's saying that Amazon has a monopoly on brick and mortar, right? Amazon has an e-commerce monopoly, or they're getting close to a monopoly. So they go, Amazon's market share of e-commerce is only 50%. Well, there you go. End of story. So Amazon can't be a monopoly because as of right now, their e-commerce share is only 50%. So, hey, just Amazon's only 50%. Forget that they're growing. Forget that the coronavirus has shut down all of these businesses and made it impossible to compete with them. It's just only 50%. Hey, what are you gonna do? And then there's so much funny. So they go. So Amazon should not be treated as having monopoly power. Okay. So we have Jim Jordan first defending Google. Right. So first Jim Jordan defends Google. Now he defends Amazon. Oh, now he's going to defend Apple. Apple has created a road. So because of that, they can charge 30% of every app in the App Store. Right. So the issue with Apple is Apple has a blanket 30% fee on apps. And Apple is not a monopoly. The App Store is not a monopoly because arguably the App Store has significantly lowered the cost of entries for developers overall. So Apple, not a monopoly. So you followed along at home. Google's not a monopoly because they say they have competitors. Amazon's not a monopoly because they only have 50% of e-commerce. And we'll pretend that that's not growing and the world's not changing. Apple's not a monopoly because they've lowered the cost of entries for developers overall, right? So Apple can keep charging 30%, right? Blanket share because there's no monopoly power by Apple in the App Store. Okay. So that's it. That's it on Apple. Apple's fine. Now we're reading Facebook. So Facebook, I haven't read Facebook yet. We'll do it in real time. Is Facebook a monopoly? No, Facebook is not a monopoly. And making it harder for Facebook to buy new companies would actually be bad. Okay? So even though Facebook bought WhatsApp and Instagram, that doesn't make them a monopoly because making M&A harder, mergers and acquisitions harder, would lead to disincentivize entrepreneurs and investors. So Facebook, not a monopoly. So you follow along at home. Google, not a monopoly because they tell us they're not. Amazon, not a monopoly because they only have 50% of e-commerce, and that's not growing, and it never will grow. Apple, not a monopoly, and they can charge people 30% no matter what because they're just not a monopoly, and they're actually doing everybody a favor by charging them 30%. And now we have Facebook, not a monopoly, and they should be able to keep buying big companies because making mergers and acquisitions harder will curtail one of the most important incentives that leads entrepreneurs, investors, and business experts to found and invest in new companies. So, as of now, there's no monopoly. And then Twitter is not mentioned here, I don't believe. I'm looking for Twitter. So Twitter's not mentioned in the term of monopolies. Or it may be. Twitter might be. But the big ones are Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook. And they are all not monopolies, and the GOP is going to shill for them tomorrow. And they're going to say all this stuff about political bias, and you're going to eat it up. And you're going to say, yeah, man, Jim Jordan's raising hell. Look at him. Dunk on the CEO. And you know what's going to mean? You know what's going to happen? Nothing. So you get your show tomorrow. You get your bread and circuses tomorrow. You'll get your little clips that you can chop up. And hell yeah, you know, he's fucking people up. Yeah, body blows. Jim Jordan's legend. Such a hard ass, right? And you're gonna get nothing. You're gonna get nothing. So there you go. There you go, Jim Jordan. He'll go on Hannity and Lindsey Graham. So Jim Jordan is the Lindsey Graham of the House. You get your clip. He can go on Hannity, but he's going to shill for big tech, defend their monopoly powers, and all the Republicans are going to defend the monopoly powers of big business. So there you go, friends. Yeah, we all got tricked. I didn't think it was this bad, but 0 for 4. None of them are monopolies. Incredible, right? Incredible. There you go, friends. Gone. That's why do I care if the GOP loses in November? Why should I care? This is the GOP. The GOP is defending monopolies. That's what they're going to do. I'm smoking a Monte Cristo Habanos. There you go, friends. I'm going to read more of this. I'll be tweeting more, stuff, but just wanted to give you the breaking news. Bad day. Mike Cernovich, Cernovich.com, CERNOVICH.com. Jim Jordan, just fucked all of you.